It's time for a special series, Profiting from the Pandemic. We believe this is not the time to put profit above human lives. But there are some who want to take advantage of a crisis, make money off this global health emergency. So we are bringing you a series of stories. The idea is to ensure that those who need the help most are not left behind. In this edition, our focus is on personal protection equipment. There's a massive shortage of PPE, personal protection equipment, worldwide. The people who need it the most are the healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, medical and non-medical staff who are fighting at the front lines. The shortage is serious and supplies are still trying to catch up. Quite simply, they need to make more. So why aren't they? Why aren't they scaling production? What is holding the world back? Greed. Let me tell you about something that happened in the US, a public spat. Some weeks back, US President Donald Trump was fighting a company that makes masks. The company is called 3M. President Trump had a complaint. 3M was not giving enough masks to America. In fact, the US had to invoke an old law, the Defense Production Act from the 1950s. The White House told 3M to stop exporting masks and give them to Americans first. Let me tell you what Trump said. This is a tweet from April. We hit 3M hard today after seeing what they were doing with their masks. Big surprise to many in government as to what they were doing. We'll have a big price to pay. Ultimately, it was sorted out. They struck a deal, more than 160 million masks for the US. Now, 3M makes some of the best N95 masks in the world. But the supply is limited because a clutch of companies controls this market. The biggest mask-making companies in the world are American. According to one estimate, 8 out of the top 10 companies, the top 10 suppliers, are American. And that's not all. 3M, listen to this, 3M, one company, holds more than 400 patents on respiratory protection in America alone, meaning only this one company can produce these 400 different types of gear, 400 patents. But one company can produce only so much. So what should it do? Release the patent, allow others to produce in an emergency like this. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear came up with such a demand. He asked 3M to release the patent, share technology used to make the N95 masks. We don't know if 3M complied, but we do know what this governor was talking about. The concept of compulsory licensing, something that allows governments to bypass patents. Now, we're not saying that a company should not get a fair profit on an innovation that it owns. Patents are important. But right now, the world is fighting a pandemic. It cannot depend on a single source.
We've got to remember we're in an emergency situation. This is a pandemic, and we've never seen anything like this on this scale before. There are laws which allow countries to overcome patents in an emergency situation. And the Americans actually used one of these to override the patent on drugs against anthrax just after 9/11, when there were anthrax samples being sent to journalists and celebrities. So if the Americans can do a compulsory license, I think any country should be able to. Some countries have already changed their laws to allow this to happen. The Israelis have already done it. The Spanish have changed the laws to do it. There are countries in South America considering it.
Here's the thing, we can't have a monopoly on medical treatments and personal protection right now. Compulsory licensing allows other companies to make the same products. They can gain access to a patent and produce copies of what's needed. And some countries are doing it already. In Chile, a resolution was passed to introduce compulsory licensing. Israel issued compulsory licenses for lopinavir and ritonavir. These are drugs being used for treatment of patients. Ecuador came up with a resolution too. It allowed the country's health minister to issue compulsory licenses over all patents related to COVID-19. Canada and Germany amended their laws to make compulsory licensing easier. Compulsory licensing can no longer be just a thought. COVID cures, treatments and supplies cannot be controlled by a few. Otherwise, it will be big pharma or medical conglomerates who decide who gets to live and who must die.